Today, I'm gonna explain a 2002 American science fiction and thriller movie called Clockstoppers. The movie begins in an airport where a bearded man is in a rush. It seems like he is being chased by someone. To make things worse, the ticket for the most recent flight is fully booked. He then keeps moving until he finds a man who is willing to give his ticket after he gives him a lot of money. Unfortunately, as soon as he reaches the plane, suddenly he is pulled out of the airport into a van rapidly. Two agents appear out of nowhere, taking off his disguise. The scene then moves to a teenager named Zak who rides his bicycle to the antique store. He steals an old vintage typewriter and tries to sell it to eBay for a higher price. Turns out that he is dying to buy a new car. Meanwhile, his dad, Zak Gibbs, is a quantum physics lecturer in the university. Zak meets his dad, begging him to sign a co-letter for the new car. But George postponed it since he has been very busy recently, working on a project at QT Lab with his student, Earl Doppler. Disappointed, Zak then visits his best friend, Meeker, who works in a paintball gun store. He invites Zak to attend a DJ contest which he signed up to. Zak spots Francesca, the hot girl that just enrolled in his school, and attempts to start a conversation with her. But Francesca is not interested in him. Zak then returns home where he begs his dad to come with him to the car showroom. However, George chooses to work on his project since Doppler has been missing for a week and it must be finished before the conference in the following week, ignoring his son's request for now. That night, George is seen just finishing the most technologically advanced watch and stores it in a secret box. On the other side, Mr. Gates, CEO of QT Company, is seen talking to Agent Moore who informs him that he is shutting down his ongoing Black Ops project due to the risk of the technology being misused by hostile powers. The man warns him that his men will come back in the following week to collect all the research equipment. The bearded man, who turns out to be the missing Dr. Doppler but in an older form, is actually Gates' scientist and he is forced to create a machine called molecular stabilizer in hypertime state, a state where people can move at a very fast pace. It is then revealed that he looks much older because he has been working for too long in the hypertime. He reveals that he has been working with George to solve this aging problem which makes Gates furious since it is a very classified project. Back at the house, Zak's sister accidentally knocks the watch out of its box. Not long after, Zak finds the watch and decides to wear it to school. Upon arrival, he sees Francesca is being teased by two men and decides to approach her, intending to help her. However, he gets humiliated by them instead. Luckily, she sees his effort and she finally is willing to give him her address, inviting him to come over. After school, he immediately heads over to the hot girl's house where he is told to help her rake leaves. Although he is a bit disappointed because it is not what he's expecting, he tries to stay positive and agrees to help her. At some point, he accidentally presses a button in the watch which suddenly slows every movement around him. He brings a huge mouse into the house and everything suddenly becomes normal again, which makes Francesca shocked. He then realizes that he actually activates the hypertime state. He then shows what he just discovered to the girl who also gets into the hypertime. He then remembers that the watch is actually accelerating their molecules, making them move very fast. That's why everything around seems like it is moving very slowly. With a watch, Zak eventually wins Francesca's heart. They use the watch's power for fun, messing around in the city. They punish an officer who keeps sending people parking tickets. After that, they prank his school friends who like to bully, and a guy who promised to hold his long-awaited car for 24 hours. Later that night, the couple attend a DJ contest where Meeker is competing. Turns out that Meeker is still an amateur and is mixing the music poorly, causing the crowd to boo him. Zak and Francesca decide to get into the hypertime state and help their poor friend. With his friend's help in hypertime, Meeker suddenly becomes very energetic and entertaining in the real world, which makes the rival confused. After the contest, Meeker still doesn't have a single clue about what happened to him. They then drive him home and Francesca eventually gives Zak a goodnight kiss just before he leaves. He gets into the hypertime and heads home where he discovers that someone is breaking into his house. Gates and the henchmen spot Zak attempt to shoot him with a liquid nitrogen, but he manages to dodge it and runs for his life. Luckily, he is saved by Dr. Doppler and they drive away with a stolen van. A chase sequence in the hypertime state ensues where Doppler explains that liquid nitrogen is used to slow down the molecular activity. After freeing himself from cuff, Doppler forces Zak to hand over the watch, but he refuses to do so. Zak throws him off the van and accidentally crashes the car into a river. Unfortunately, the watch is broken as it touches the water. The next day, Zak wakes up in the hospital and tries to explain about the watch and the pursuit to his family after being accused of stealing a van. He then discovers that the henchmen are still going after him. He is able to dry up the broken watch and successfully dodges them after switching clothes with one of the police officers. On the other side, Gates learns that George is Zak's father and Doppler's secret colleague in the project. He then plans to kidnap the father. Zak asks Meeker's help to borrow his car, but fails. Thus, he sneaks into Francesca's huge mansion to borrow clothes and a car to find his dad, who is attending a conference. She lends him her BMW and decides to come with him. Meanwhile, Gates single-handedly approaches George, forcing him to finish the molecular stabilizer in QT's lab. Not long after, Zak and Francesca arrive at his dad's hotel room, but cannot find anyone there. He suspects that George has checked out from the room. While looking for his father, Zak learns that he and Dr. Doppler are now becoming FBI fugitives. As soon as they leave the hotel, a garbage truck approaches them and captures them. A few moments later, turns out that Dr. Doppler is the one who kidnapped them. Francesca spontaneously kicks him in his face. He then urges Zak to hand over the watch. He refuses and the girl kicks him again in his balls. They bring him to a motel where Zak interrogates him, thinking that he is a spy because Doppler is not supposed to be that old since he is George's student in university. Zak threatens to send Doppler back to QT if he does not want to help him rescue George. Doppler then reluctantly complies and helps him to fix the watch. They sneak into the conference where Francesca distracts the nerds while the boys steal required materials for the watch. Using a building drawn by Doppler, they decide to break in through the ventilation. At that point, Doppler finishes the brand new watch. After that, they visit Meeker's store where they create frozen hydrogen bullets and borrow paintball weapons that will be used to slow down their foes, sending them back to the normal state. The next day, they sneak into the building through the ventilation where Doppler decides not to go further since he's got PTSD and is too afraid of being captured again. They get into the hypertime state and manage to get inside the building, but a hypertime alarm is triggered. Using their modified weapons, Francesca and Zak manage to knock out several guards until they get caught by Gates' henchmen. The two are thrown in a cell with George, who is trying to finish the machine. George scolds his son for trying to help him, but then they reconcile. Outside the building, Agent Moore arrives at the building with his men to confiscate the research equipment. At the same time, George successfully finishes the machine and Gates immediately orders him to test the molecular stabilizer. He activates the machine, taking everyone in the room into hypertime. The trio plan a strategy to escape from the cell. Using the watch, Zak accelerates while in hypertime state and reaches the speed of light. This light form allows him to go through objects, including the cell's wall. However, he gets hit by the liquid nitrogen and transforms back to his normal form. George and Francesca manage to create an explosion and break free from the cell. Surviving from the explosion, Gates manages to knock Francesca out of hypertime and prepares to fire the liquid nitrogen to the others. Luckily, Doppler arrives on time and shoots him, sending him back to normal state. All QT's employees are arrested by Agent Moore while all the watches are being taken. Doppler uses the machine to reverse his aging effect of hypertime, transforming him back to the teenager form. The family reunite and Zak finally gets the car he has been dreaming of. As Zak, Doppler, Francesca, and Zak's sister drive away, it is revealed that he still keeps the watch and they enter the hypertime state together. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.